Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan, a warm welcome to Muslima Insight, your show for moral regeneration and spiritual reformation to unite the Ummah. Today in Muslima Insight, we are going to look at being veiled, or better known in the Arab terms or Arabic terms as being in hijab. And with me in studio, I've got two lovely ladies that are going to share with us their experience, their wisdom and their knowledge, so that we all can learn to grow on this path closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First of all, I would like to extend a warm welcome to both of you here today. Ahlan wa sahlan and assalamu alaikum. Can both of you please give our viewers a brief introduction of yourself as well as your background?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to the viewers. And I want to say thank you to you, Sister Adila, and to ITV for accommodating us. It's really an honor to be here. I am a school teacher, and in my private life, I'm very active in women's groups. So I counsel women, and also so I learn a lot from them. And that is my passion in life, is, networking with women and finding out what are the issues that women deal with daily, being a mother, being a mother, a wife. There's so many roles we have to play, and we have to juggle those roles, and it's such a huge challenge in this day and age. And so that is my passion. That's what drives me.
And you are, of course, Sister Fatima Domingo, in case our viewers have missed it. And Sister Zaytun, from your side?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Sister Adila and ITV, for having me on your show. I am a mother of two. I homeschool both my kids, alhamdulillah. I'm also a student at the Islamic Online University, currently doing my diploma in Islamic Studies, and I'm a board member of a Lighthouse on the Horizon. It's an alcohol and substance abuse rehabilitation center.
Fantastic. It's both very interesting careers, and it's wonderful to see the women that are so involved in community work, because there's always a need. That's really fantastic. Coming back to today's topic of being veiled, and for the sake of our non-Muslim viewers, we understand the term hijab to mean to be covered, to be veiled, or to be screened. And from what I understood in some of my research is the chronological order of the three types of hijab that we're going to look at today. The first of which was for women to stay indoors. The second, if my memory serves me correctly, is when they then go out, is to cover their person. And the third one, which is most commonly known for the women, where they cover their hair only and the body only. The headscarf. And what I would like to do for us, is for us to start off with the most common one, which most Muslim women wear. And I would like to make reference to two verses in the Quran, and if we can then expound on that in our discussions. And the first of which is Surah 24, verse 30 and 31, where Allah Ta'ala says, "And say to the believing men that they should lower their gaze and guard their modesty. That will make for greater purity for them, and Allah is well acquainted with all that they do." And then verse 31, "And say to the believing women that they should lower their gaze and guard their modesty, that they should not display their beauty and ornaments, except what must ordinarily appear thereof, that they should draw their veils over their bosoms, and not display their beauty, except to their husbands, their fathers," end quote. A whole list of relatives then follows, and the verse ends with, "And they should not strike their feet in order to draw attention to their ornaments. And O you believers, turn you all together towards Allah, that you may attain bliss," end quote. Now, if we look at these particular two verses, we can see that both the men and the women are addressed. And what I believe, these are also the verses known as the verses of hijab. Sisters, from your side, how do you view this? How do you understand these verses?
Well, those particular verses was revealed in Surah An-Nur, and it was in response to the Prophet ﷺ's wife, Aisha radiallahu anhu, was accused of adultery. She was slandered. So in response to that, the Creator had revealed Surah An-Nur, and these verses vindicated her. And then the Creator, He always presents the problem and then gives the solution. So the problem was slandering, and how do you then protect women, particularly the mothers of the believers, and then by extension the believing women, because our honor, our modesty has to be protected. So Allah has revealed those verses in response to protecting our modesty. So therefore we have to dress in a certain way. And those verses vindicated Aisha radiallahu anhu, because the Creator also severely reprimands you if you slander somebody. You must have 4 reliable witnesses. And then also in Surah Ahzab, He also expounds on that. He instructs the Prophet ﷺ on how his wives, his daughters, and the believing women should dress. And then the Creator says that this is so that they can be protected and that they are not harassed. That is how we say it in English. We can't really translate Quranic terms adequately, but so you can see all those verses have been revealed to protect us. So we dress this way so that we are not harassed. And also with regards to the lowering of the gaze, there's many scholars that say it's not just a physical thing, but of course you have the nafs inside of you, and your nafs, you have to lower that as well. Because
so almost the inward gaze.
Yes, because there's the physical gaze, and then there's the inward. Because you can be outwardly disobedient, inwardly obedient. Then you can be outwardly obedient, or the other way around, disobedient, but inwardly obedient. And Allah knows best. So, of course, the lowering of the gaze is not just a physical gaze, it is also the nafs.
So it starts with the heart. The first hijab, one would say, is to have the hijab of the heart.
Yes.
And Sister Zaitun?
The verse starts with the men, addressing the men, lower your gaze. I want to say that hijab is for our emotional well-being as well, and it helps with your spiritual growth, because if you're emotionally you are distorted, how it affects your relationship with Allah in a negative way. Okay, so I want to use an example of a woman who is in her home trying to please her maker. She's wearing her hijab. Her husband comes home, okay, so she's wearing something to beautify herself for her husband. He comes home and he doesn't even say, oh, you look beautiful or anything,
Any compliment.
No compliment. And then they go out and she puts her hijab on now, because her beauty is for her husband. She puts her hijab on and he looks at another woman in the shopping mall, and she notices this. Okay, it affects your wife emotionally.
Of course it does.
And your wife may not be strong enough to go home and pray tahajjud, cry to Allah in the midst of the nights and say, Ya Allah, forgive my husband and help us and strengthen our bond as husband and wife. She may rebel, and that's going to affect her hijab. She may say, okay, my husband likes this kind of dress, so I'm going to do the same thing. Maybe it gives me attention. So you protecting yourself, your wife, by lowering your gaze. You're protecting your iman. Internalizing your hijab.
Yeah, so I can understand that the point you are making is that inward lowering of the gaze, as well as the physical, in that Allah Ta'ala, He addresses the men first, that they should lower their gaze and guard their modesty, because exactly what you are saying, it's got further consequences other than them becoming a person almost say tainting their own souls, because it is a negative. It is a negative to be out there lusting, looking, staring brazenly at other people. In today's times, we've got males staring at males as well. So it cuts across the border where men should lower their gaze, and the same aspect goes here to the woman. But what I would like to highlight is in the various 2 Qur'ans that I've looked at, now I'm not Arabic speaking, and we need sisters that do know the Arabic language that can assist us. Both these verses in the Qur'ans that I was using uses the word should. So for the readers out there that perhaps can only read the English, should we take these verses as farz or as a recommendation? How should we indeed view these particular verses?
Okay, it's actually a religious obligation, because if the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ's life was the Quran personified. So when you look at his life, you will see that the mothers of the believers dressed a certain way, and the verses are extended as well to the believing women. So it is not just a mere recommendation, but it is an obligation. However, I just want to add, does the wearing of hijab make you a better human being, a better Muslim? Not necessarily. Not if your conduct is not compatible
or contradictory.
Yes, contradictory.
Jazakallah, sister. We're going to expound on this point after the break. Don't go away. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A warm welcome back to Muslima Insight. Before the break, we were expounding on two of the verses in the Quran, and Sister Fatima was explaining to us the context in which these verses were revealed. And Sister, you were saying, we left off on the note where you were explaining that although in the English translations we read that they should, and the word should is affirmed that they should do it, but it's not they must do it. And you were explaining to us also in relation to other verses that it is something that is and should be regarded as compulsory. Sister Zaytun, from your side, taking this a little bit further, when it comes to the women in particular, surfing the net, I've seen a couple of websites, I've heard a couple of stories of youth saying that the covering of the hair is not necessary, that the Quran only refers to the covering of the body. However, I mean, in my simple understanding of English, it says clearly that they should not display their beauty and ornaments. And we know the ornament refers to the bosom, but surely a woman's beauty is everything. What is your take on that?
I think that we should be looking at the Quran when reading it, obviously from looking at the Arabic words, using classical Arabic, okay? And the word used is khimar. Now, what is a khimar? It is something that was worn in the time of the Prophet and even before that. Right. Like if you take the picture of Mother Mary, okay, we don't draw pictures as Muslims of any of the mothers of the believers or the prophets or anyone. They have the scarf starting from here. Okay. Then it says, draw the khimar over your juyub. Your juyub is this section of your body. Okay. And so it shows you that your hair has to be covered. Just because the word hair is not mentioned, I mean, then that means we must take every other thing in the Quran that doesn't mention specific words, and that can cause chaos. Then you're changing the Quran.
You're changing, yes.
Can I also add to that, Sister Adla? Islam is just not taking a few components and without context. We have to look at it in context. It is a comprehensive way of life. It is a complete way of life. And we can't just pick and choose which parts.
A cut and paste kind of a thing that we...
So that's what's being done here. We need to look at it holistically in its entirety. And when we're looking at the Quran, we have to look at the prophetic example because it is compatible with the Quran. And if we don't find it there, then obviously, we really need to go and learn and educate ourselves before we just decide we just want to pick and choose.
Just choose certain words and put emphasis on that because it suits our
you. Yes, the Quran is there for us. We change our lifestyle to fit what Allah asks us to do because it's better for us and humanity at large.
And obviously, very true what you have said is for example, Salah wasn't explained exactly in the Quran. We had to look at the example of the Prophet ﷺ. And so too, if we are not sure about what we should cover and shouldn't cover, surely we should look at the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, the Salaf, the 3 generations after the Prophet ﷺ, to see, because their understanding of Islam was much better than what our understanding is today. In your experience, would you say then the wearing of hijab, is it a hindrance in today's time that we're living in? Or can you expound, for the sake of our viewers, especially our non-Muslim viewers, what benefits do we get out from wearing hijab?
Okay, for me, I believe that it's part of my identity, because if you're looking at Surah Al-Ahzab again, the Creator says it's to identify you or to recognize you, and so that you are not harassed. So that's what it means for me, that this is who I am. When you look at me with respect, with reverence and respect. That's what it means for me. I can't prescribe that to anybody else. Sure. But that's what it means for me.
I agree with you, Auntie Fatima. Hijab for me also is my identity as a Muslim woman. And if you look, at the word identify yourself, okay, is it only for other people to identify yourself? To identify you, I think it's for you to identify yourself correctly, because this hijab shows that I am a truthful woman, because I am following what Allah has asked me to do. I'm true to myself as a Muslim woman. I'm going to internalize that, and I'm going to be a truthful person.
Of course.
Okay? I am confident in what Allah has asked me to do. I'm going to internalize that, and I'm going to share my confidence with other Muslims. Also, I am kind to myself, okay? I want to cover myself and I want to protect myself. I'm going to internalize my kindness and I'm going to share it with other Muslim women, okay? So it's not just this way or that way. We need to bring it together, because our Prophet, peace be upon him, said we are a middle nation.
Exactly. And it is so sad, excuse me, if we look, we live in a non-Muslim country, and you drive on the highway and you see these billboards, and there's total explicitness of the female figure. And we can really see that, that's why the deen is there, because it upholds the respect of a woman. And these type of concepts that the West do not realize. They think of us as backward and orthodox, but yet they don't realize. And what is very sad is also that one will notice that it's always a female figure that is used in advertisements, in selling of cars, half-naked pictures, and yet you won't see most men half-dressed. The female figure is always torn down to its bare nakedness that they can. And surely in this, the West have got a lot that they can learn from us. How would you say we can start sharing these ideas with them?
Can I also just add to that, Sister Adla? Statistically, they say that there are more women in the world that are embracing Islam than men. So if Islam oppresses women, because that's the perception, then why are there more? And if you go just on YouTube alone or onto the internet, and you see how many sisters are liberated through hijab, so many women that embrace Islam say that the hijab has given them liberation. So they are not anymore seen as a sex object. They're not seen just for their physical beauty, but for their intellect and for everything else.
And for everything else, correct. Because also that example comes to mind is, especially also in a country like South Africa and other countries, where they see the Muslim woman in their hijab and they're immediately judged, but they don't look further and think of the Roman Catholics, where Mother Teresa, for example, what were these women, or what do we have in common? Is piety, is modesty. We are not saying that we are saintly and we are better than the rest. We are purely following the commandments of our Creator. Then also, if we take this subject a little bit further to the men, like I said previously, or just now, is that the men are not always portrayed as that. But yet in today's time, we find men in skinny jeans and tight-fitting tops with buttons open. So what would you say on taking the hijab of the men a little bit further?
But the aura is obviously from the hip
to the
knee. To the knee.
Yeah.
So they may use that as an argument. But yes, their conduct should then be in, especially the Muslim men, they know how they're supposed to conduct themselves.
Yeah.
So it must be compatible with Islam or Islamic values.
But if we take this, what I've just mentioned, to the extreme that men are also being used in adverts,
Yes.
you also see them on billboards, and they're also starting to use them as a sexual object.
Yes.
What counsel can we give, or what points can we raise in that aspect for men to become aware that if Allah Ta'ala says and tells them to also guard their modesty, surely we know what that refers to, but it is surely everything for a male as well to be guardful of who he is, how he conducts himself.
Yes, there are a hadith about that. The Prophet ﷺ said that if you have no modesty, you may do as you please. And then he said every faith has an innate character, and the innate character of Islam is modesty. Haya. So beautifully said by the Prophet ﷺ himself. So if we can just adhere to that, then everything else will fall into place.
Also, I think we should not look at other people around us for examples. Because we are taught to look at the righteous predecessors, at the Sahaba, at the Prophet, peace be upon him. That's your best example.
Yeah, exactly.
As a man.
Yeah, exactly. So it goes back to both the males and the females that we can look at the Prophet ﷺ, at his wives, at the Sahaba and the Salaf. And inshallah, we're going to continue on this topic after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A warm welcome back to Muslima Insight. Sisters, we are expounding on the wearing of hijab. We're touching on concepts for the women as well as for the men. And in the beginning, I mentioned that there are 3 types of hijab. And now I want to come to, we've spoken about the one that's more commonly known, the hijab, where we just cover the hair and covering of the body. And we also covered that it is compulsory. It is something that we should definitely be doing. The rewards of that is bliss, it is purity of the soul, and of course nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Coming to the next form of hijab, where the women are told to stay indoors, I would like to just refer to 2 verses from the Holy Quran, Surah 33, verse 32 to 33. O consorts of the Prophet, you are not like any of the other women. If you do fear Allah, be not complacent of speech, lest one in whose heart is a disease should be moved with desire, but speak you a speech that is just. And in the next verse, and stay quietly in your houses, and make not a dazzling display like that of the former times of ignorance, and establish regular prayer, and give regular charity, and obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. And Allah only wishes to remove all abomination from you, you members of the family, and to make you pure and spotless. Now, if we look at these particular 2 verses, there's a lot that we need to unpack here. And the first thing that I would like to understand as a layperson, if we say that Allah Ta'ala here is addressing the household of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he clearly says that his wives are not like ordinary, they're not like us as we are sitting here. What is your take on that, Sister Zaitun?
I would say that if I'm a follower of Rasulullah and I want to show my love for him and his wives, I'm probably going to take them as my role model, and I'm probably going to want to do what they do. Okay? So I would not, I would say that my voice is part of my hijab as well. Don't beautify your voice for other people. Okay? What does this mean? It could mean anything. Don't go and sing outside of your house. And, you know, how does a man protect his private parts if a form of becoming aroused is through listening? Okay? Don't leave your house looking or glamorous. You know, cover yourself just to protect yourself. If you need to go out with your mahram, go out for necessity, go taking your children out, teaching them about the world and about things, but don't leave your house unnecessarily. You know, stay inside, work on your spirituality, work on your link with Allah.
And Sister Fatima?
For me, the verses are addressing the mothers of the believers, so their maqam is higher than ours.
Sure.
So I'm not sure. For me personally, I have a job as a teacher, and in my personal life, I may not be able to adhere to that totally. But yes, we must follow in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ, and they are our example.
But do you think in this sense it is, I won't say an obligation, but it was something that it was, although, like you have rightfully said, it is something that we can all strive towards in our own spiritual journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is not something that it is compulsory, we have to do it.
No, because also in those verses also go on, I'm not sure if it is in that Quranic verse, but I think it's in Surah Nur actually, where the Creator addresses the mothers of the believers, and then later on he addresses the believing women. So yes, then he also says, and it is not fitting for the mothers of the believers to remarry after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. So he does make a distinction between the mothers of the believers and the believing women, because we just ordinary, and we are allowed to get married after the death of our husbands, whereas they were not allowed to. So their status was definitely different.
Yes. Definitely different. Yes. And I think that's something that women, that we need to take that into consideration as well, because exactly of that fact that Allah Ta'ala chose those wives and commanded the Prophet to marry them. And the fact that what is wonderful in here is that it says, and members of the family, and to make you pure and spotless. And we can see that the good that comes out once again, although we are saying, okay, this was especially because they are not ordinary. They were not at our level. Their spiritual station is much higher. We can see that the benefit in it again, to become pure and spotless, because like you have said, you have mentioned that through the hearing, a man can be aroused, they can be misled. And the bending of the voice is not only in singing, it could be a sweet way of answering the telephone.
Yes.
And you can seduce a man just by speaking in a different tone of voice or over the phone. The other thing is also about being pure and spotless. Surely, women that are out there, that are dressed in a provocative manner, they do draw the attention. They draw the physical attention of the men's eyes. And that obviously, again, taints their soul, taints the aura of that person, and it cannot be good for them. Now, sisters, in carrying on this particular hijab that we are discussing now, there's another verse that I would like to quote. It is Surah 33, verse 59. O Prophet, tell your wives and daughters and the believing women that they should cast their outer garments over their persons when abroad. That is most convenient, that they should be known as such and not molested. And Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. And I think this was the verse that you were referring to.
Yes.
So, and then the other interpretation is that they may be identified.
That they may be identified.
And not harassed, yes.
Yeah. And for me, what is important in here is again, here the believing women are also included. Is it at this place that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sister Zaytun, that when the Prophet ﷺ's wives then did go out, I think it's a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, where when this was revealed, the women tore pieces of their garments and they covered their faces. Would you say that that is sort of the birthplace of niqab?
There is also another hadith that applies to Asma bint Abu Bakr, the daughter of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, because she came with transparent clothes in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, and he turned his face away. And he said, when a female reaches the age of puberty, she should cover her whole body except this and this, and he pointed to the face and the hands. And that is, narration comes from Abu Dawud, right? So that is another form of hijab coming from the Prophet ﷺ in response to Asma bint Abu Bakr, the daughter of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu.
So there is clear hadith that
they are clear.
That makes it clear that, from my understanding, is from what I've read in Sahih Bukhari, is that the believing when the revelation came, the woman that was of his consort, his household, took pieces of their garments and they covered their faces, because for them then to leave the house, and it makes logical sense, if they are advised to stay indoors, when they then leave the house, it is better for them to cover. I mean, logically speaking, if you take the president's wives, if they have to walk into the street today, people are going to go and arrest them and talk to them, and you understand. And I mean, it makes logical sense beyond them being the Prophet's wives. I mean, that makes them of an even higher status. We can understand that, number one, it symbolizes that they should be known as, which is very important, because obviously it is to promote Islam, it is to make people understand the deen. And unfortunately, on that note, we have to go to a break. Don't go away. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and warm welcome back to Muslima Insight. In today's program, we are looking at the topic being veiled. And before the break, we were expounding on the different hadith, the different verses, and coming back to in the first segment where I opened up by saying that there were three types of hijab. In the chronological order, from what I understand, is the first type that was revealed after Bibi Aisha radiallahu anha was accused of adultery, when the Prophet ﷺ was told for his wives to stay indoors, it is better for them so that they will not be molested, etc. The second type was then when they should leave their houses, is that they cover themselves, and the hadith from Bukhari is that they actually tore pieces of their garments, and they also covered their faces. Further to this, we came to the more common way of the hijab, which is more for the ordinary women, and we expounded also on the status of the Prophet ﷺ's wives, that they were not ordinary. So the more ordinary person for ourselves is where we basically cover our hair and our bodies. Now, coming to a completely different aspect in what we are discussing, and it is something that it really is very important that we bring it out in today's topic, is when you are wearing your hijab, your niqab, and we can look at it at both levels, it is with what attitude are you wearing it? What are some of the judgments and criticisms that you have come across in your own respective journeys in wearing your hijab, and for you taking it a step further? What have you come across?
Well, can I say, if you will allow me, Sister Adla, to cite an example of this 32-year-old mother who died because of wearing hijab. She was playing with a little 3-year-old son in the park, and she was harassed by this young German. And she took the case to court. But when she was in court, this young man stabbed her to death 18 times. And her husband tried to, because he called her a terrorist in the park, that is why she took the case to court. He stabbed her 18 times in the court with all the police there. And when her husband tried to defend her, they shot him. And he was injured in his back in the presence of a 3-year-old son. She was 3 months pregnant as well. She died with the baby inside of her. And no, it wasn't made a big deal out of. This was 2009, July 2009. Marwa al-Sharbini was her name. You didn't see it in the Western media.
No.
Had that been a Muslim man that killed a non-Muslim woman, it would have been
all over, yes.
Yeah.
And she died a martyr, and nobody made a fuss out of it. And that is because of this ongoing campaign against hijab in Europe and in the mainstream media. So that's an extreme example. But I think even in this country, when women are wearing a hijab or niqab in today's context, it is associated with terrorism, and it has now become a political symbol instead of a symbol of modesty. Yes. So we, as Muslim women, when we go out there, we have to still deal with that harassment as well. But we should remain firm, because Allah is our protector. He is our wakil, and He is the one whom we will return to. And I think we should wear our hijab with pride, not with pride that we feel better than others, but pride in terms of that this is part of our identity.
Yes. Of course, absolutely. And that you're doing it for the sake and the love of your Creator and the obedience towards Him. And you, Sister Zayton?
I can recall once I was in a shopping mall and I walked past, we were walking past it, I was going out, and the lady very loudly said, in a country like this, I think this kind of dress is ridiculous. Okay, so I think a lot of people think this is probably something done in Saudi Arabia or something. And it's not. It's me. I chose to do this. I feel that this is me and my identity as a Muslim woman. Okay, and just like you're free to wear whatever you want to wear, I'm free to wear what I want to wear.
Of course. Okay? Of course. There's symbolism. We don't ask them to remove that.
No.
Exactly. And Sister, if we look at our relationship among each other as Muslim sisters, because what I have come across also, and people that have confided in me have come across as there is sometimes among some people, not all of us, it's a broad generalization, there is that subtle judgment among each other to, I am more pious, I am better than, and I'm not saying it is you, I'm very grateful that you are here, because we as sisters that are not in niqab, sometimes we need to have this dialogue to understand, and this is what I said in the previous segment, with what attitude, with what is your internal character when you are putting on that niqab. What I have come across, and like I said, people confide, there are groups, a lot of the women either in hijab only will form a clique, or women in niqab form a group, and they start gossiping and backbiting each other as who's more modest. And for me, that you destroy the purpose of wearing that hijab for both sides. What are your experiences? Are you aware of these things that happen?
Yes, I am. Actually, I was with my cousin in a mall, and a woman came out of the elevator wearing niqab, and we greeted each other, right? And when we got in, I said, don't you think it's odd that she greeted me and she didn't greet you? You're wearing a scarf. And she said, yeah, it's a parda thing, she said to me.
Yeah.
But obviously jokingly. But I think that we need to, when as a family, okay, when you need to be explained, something needs to be explained to you. How beautifully do we bring it across to our daughters and our mothers and whoever is in our home? The same way, I think we need to bring across this wearing of hijab and wearing of niqab. Okay, don't go and force it onto anybody. Show them what is better for them. Okay, I'm sorry if any of the sisters have come across a woman in niqab that made them feel like a horrible Muslim. I'm really sorry that they doomed you to hell. Okay,
and it's not their place to do that.
Yes,
it's not their place to do that in the first place.
You know what? You know what? You need help. We all need help. Okay,
and you defeat the purpose of that niqab, because the Quran makes it clear that if you have a mustard grain of pride, you will not enter Jannah. And the minute you, and not just for women in niqab, it could be women in hijab that regard them better as a sister that's not covering at all. That the minute you can do years of worship, years of ibadat, and that one act where you look down upon another because I'm so pious, I'm so modest, then you defeat the purpose. Or the other thing that also comes to mind is that we are told to enjoin what is good and forbid what is evil. Now, we need to again look at the context of when this was revealed. It was with the advent of Islam, it was with the propagation of Islam, and yet now when people are in the deen, many people feel because of that they've got the right to go and judge and to go take out their religious bets. And that's where we go wrong as a ummah. Because in my experience is if you look at that and forbid what is evil, we need to understand what evil is.
Yes.
If you don't wear your hijab or your niqab, it doesn't mean you're an evil person. Evil is when you're hurting and harming people. And the other thing is also, if we want to talk about to give admonition to people, you have to give it in a way that does not offend them. If you want to guide, like you said, if you want to tell people and educate people, you have to do it with good
beautiful
character.
way, yes.
In a beautiful way.
Action is the highest form of iman. So the Prophet ﷺ attracted people to the deen through his actions. Okay, through his speech as well, but people looked at him. He was Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Everything about his character brought people to Islam. And only Allah can, there's a Quranic verse, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Verily the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is the most Allah conscious of you. And only Allah knows.
That's
your hijab is, yes, one component of it, but it is, only Allah knows.
The taqwa in the heart.
Exactly.
And you know, I think help your Muslim sister. Okay, she's not dressing so appropriately. Help her. Don't kick her down and belittle her in any way. She's trying. She's on her own spiritual journey.
But of course, that's what you're
That's
saying
so true.
must also be with the extension of wanting to be helped.
Yes,
Because the danger that we sit with is that people. You can drive people away. If they're not looking for the advice, they're not seeking for that advice. They are. I think what we need to remember is that each and every person is on that spiritual path inwardly on their own. And yes, here and there where advices come, let it be. But let it not be a judgment. Quick closing statements from both of you.
I just want to say that for me, hijab means it is part of my identity. And in Surah Al-Ahzab, the Creator tells you it's part of your identity and it is about not being harassed. And that, to me, is what hijab symbolizes. And I believe it's very important that we adopt that identity and that when we do wear hijab, that it doesn't necessarily make us a better human being or a better Muslim. It's your conduct must be compatible with your dress code, and that's what it means for me.
I would like to say that for hijab, just as Sister Fatima said, it's part of my identity. And I also want our Muslim sisters to understand that a non-Muslim doesn't look at us and say she wears a pink scarf and she wears a blue scarf and she's wearing a parda and they're all different. They look at us and they say Muslim.
Exactly.
Are you confused as Muslims? Love each other enough to advise each other in a beautiful way. Okay, whether I am the one advising you and I sound a bit harsh, say to me, sister, please use better words. I also need advice on how to speak. I'm not going to stop giving dawah just because I can't do it properly. I'm going to learn how to do it properly. Okay, I'm not going to stop wearing my hijab. I'm going to try every single day to better myself as a Muslim woman in whichever way I can.
Jazakallah, both of you, for coming and being here today. Inshallah, I trust and I pray that our viewers have learned much from today's program. And in my closing statement is that we should always remember that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the heart of a believer, and none of us have the right to judge the other on their outer, on whatever clothing they are wearing or what they are not wearing. And yes, there is a place for us to give advice, to give admonition, but we need to be very cautious that we know how to approach others psychologically in a good manner so that we do not offend and cause divisions between people. Inshallah, there will be an article on the Muslima Facebook page. Do remember to visit our Facebook page, like it, and also to follow me on Twitter. From myself, Adila, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.